Hello everybody, let's exit to port. It is currently 14:37 on the 21st of November 2023. And for those of you who will be commenting on this, yes, it is still Central European time. And something that is also very European and very central in these podcasts, Mr. Grumbles the Dwarf. How you doing, Grumbles?
Hello, I'm good, thank you, Tiger. Good to be here.
Always good to have you. We're coming up on closing the third year of these podcasts. What in the world? What in the world?
Flies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. I had one of these thoughts not long ago that it's been actually 3 years of doing these now, and season 4 will be coming up soon. Like it's it's just time, man, time. It's weird. Speaking of time, I think because we have a lot of topics today, we're just going to jump straight into it so that we do not get stranded.
Nice.
That
was good.
Thank you. Thank you. So, let's just get straight into the nitty-gritty of Stranded Alien Dawn. What's your thoughts here? Like what happened to make you try it? Why is it a good game? Like, just give us the lowdown of it.
Yeah. So when it came out, I can't remember what it was, but there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. Probably some roleplay things. Who knows? And there were so many shinies, I didn't really notice this one. It doesn't say anything good, bad, or otherwise. It's just one of those, like, I kind of half glanced at it and I saw people were like pumped for it, and I was like, I have no idea. I don't know. Looks completely different. No idea. So I kind of skipped it. And a couple of weeks ago, I don't usually get much time to sort of hang out on Twitch. I'm usually trying to get away from the computer when I'm not on. But when I do get a chance, it's always nice to pop in on a few places here and there. And I popped by, I saw Cringer was on. And I thought, well, I've got, half an hour or whatever. I'll just go and chat a little bit. And because other things that we'll talk about later are in the back of my mind as well. And he was playing Stranded Alien Dawn, which I'll forever struggle with the title of the game. It's about being stranded in the ship Alien Dawn. We've just talked about this in the
we're just
editorial meeting.
We're just gonna go ahead and admit the fact that for a long time it said Alien Stranded Dawn in here until Grumbles pointed out literally seconds before we started recording. So yeah.
We didn't want a second month in a row with a live edit. So sorry, Mari, to ruin that for you. But yeah, he was playing this, and I always like chatting and hanging out with them anyway, but I was like, what is this game? This looks really intriguing. And I was like, oh, I remember the name. It was one that just flew past me. And it started, I'd just come off the back of the 12 Days of Indie, or we're getting to the close of that, the charity event, where I've been playing Clanfolk. And I really enjoy Clanfolk, which is a more sort of top-down, RimWorld-esque style, sort of help your colony survive type thing. And this immediately just started jumping at me off the screen like, wow, this has all the hallmarks of that kind of survival thing, like RimWorldy, like, Clanfolk that I really enjoy. But it was like, I was looking at it and I'm like, it's like watching Clanfolk or RimWorld married to the Sims. Which I played like decades ago when it first came out, and it's like, this is really neat. Like, I've got nothing against like the top down and all that, but sometimes it's nice to have that little bit of different immersion and be able to look around and see what's going on. So I just started following along and watching it unravel, as it were, and thinking to myself, well, Cringe is also very good at these kind of games. Me, not so much, but could be fun. And then, one thing led to another, and I was like, oh, I've not had a go. And it had a new DLC that had just come out called Guardians. And in that DLC, you get a sort of an android called Hope, and your job is basically to protect that android from the evil galactic consortium who make evil robot armies and stuff like that, and help her to gain full sentience. And I was like, wow, that's really intriguing as well. So that's the whole twist on the story, because not only are survivors having to survive, but they have to, above all else, this one other sort of character has to survive. And I just thought, wow, amazing. And then Cringer, because he's such a good egg, I was like, oh, I looked on Keymailer, and they had keys for PC for the DLC, but the main game you can only get for PlayStation or Xbox. And it's like, what? Well, that's no use to me. So I just was like, I just chuckled about it like a flippant, like throwaway comment.
Yeah.
And Cringer being Cringer was like, well, that's not how you do it, man. And he's like, hang on a minute, turns to his other computer while he's on live stream and just messages me saying, just email that guy. Like, oh, thanks.
That's amazing.
Cool. So yeah, I emailed them at Frontier Foundry, and yeah, just they did a quick sort of check, who are you, what's your content like, that kind of thing. And within the same day, they sent me keys for the base game and the DLC. So thank you to Frontier Foundry, really appreciate that. And Cringer with the hookup. And yeah, I honestly, Tiger, it's been quite a while since like a new game that I've just picked up has got me completely hooked. Like I'm talking, all right, I want to relax a little bit on Monday on my day off in between the video editing sessions and getting away from the PC. Oh, well, it won't hurt. We could just run a little bit of Alien Dawn, off to the side, and oh no, don't start it. Don't do it, because I've gotten very good, like, again, for health reasons stuff, at like stepping away from the computer. I'm not where I want to be with it yet, but I'm at least getting away from the computer. I'm doing well. I could do more exercise and getting out a bit for the walks and whatnot, but at least, one step at a time. This game is ruining all of my good work because it's so addictive for me. It's just, I just really enjoy, I didn't realize how much I enjoyed like colony management survival type things that aren't like RimWorld. I really still want to get into, but I can't get past the UI yet, and I keep going on about, so it's going to be boring. I'm not going to go on about it anymore, but this just gives me that, that look and feel and way around. It's not perfect, but there's no such thing as perfect probably, but it's just really, it's got a great vibe around it. Like when you think you got it and then something happens, whether it's suddenly one of your characters got hit by lightning because you sent them out into the woods chopping in a thunderstorm, or there's so many different things that can go wrong, but also that can go in your favor. And so the RNG element of like feels nicely done, because I've been playing it and people are like, you get the usual kind of backseaty, like, oh, I know this, and you do this, and you should research that, and it's like, or I just play it the way I want to play it. And the best moments, well, not the best moments, sorry, a little half smirk moments that I've had, because I don't want to over exaggerate it, have been like, someone's like, oh, you can't do that, and I'm like, well, I can. It says it there on the screen, so I'm going to just build that. And people are like, wait, what's that? And it's like, I don't know. It was just one of the breakthroughs that one of my characters came up with. And they're like, oh, never seen that before. And it's like, well, maybe just enjoy watching someone else. You know what I mean? So yeah, I had a cut. There's been like 2 or 3 of those moments, and it's like, people are like, no, it's not how that works. And it's like, well, when I click this button, why does it work then, kind of thing,
Yeah.
So that's been kind of nice because, generally my community is very good. We've got a lot of new people coming in as well. It's been very popular viewing, which is nice too. And, you get an element of people wanting to tell you how to do it or do the thing. But we've been, as usual, we're pretty good with that. And yeah, it's just super, super fun. I really recommend it. So I can send you the contact if you.
I mean, that's not normally my kind of game, but yeah, no, I've definitely watched people play both RimWorld and that. And speaking of which, I would love to see you play not Prison Architect, but there's another one where you're meant to break out of prison,
Right.
Which I can't remember what it's called, but it's the same style of animation, same kind of thing, and it's a fantastic little game. And I think you'd enjoy that too. But you go into the you take control of one character instead of all of them, and you try to figure out stuff, and it's kind of cool. But watching others play that, I'm like, this is perfect to watch.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that can happen, be that everything from wild animals to light attack bots to lightning strikes, it's suddenly when you think you're on board and on top of something, and then there's this random event that throws a massive spanner in your works, everything grinds to a halt, and you have a, oh no, I didn't do this, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap kind of thing. And yeah, those games, those moments are just wonderful to watch, but I don't know how well I handle them myself. That's kind of the big thing here.
Yeah. It's definitely a big challenge for me because there's just like a lot going on. It's weird because it has these moments, it's as you just described it. Basically, it lulls you into this false sense of security of like, yeah, I think we're doing really well. We've got this, we've got some good tech on the go. We're cooking some things up or whatever. And then it's like, I don't know, one of them, they rolled like I think we had ended on a cliffhanger of like, oh, there's going to be an attack soon kind of thing, And so and then when we came back to it, I don't know if it was the next day or a couple of days after, I think it was the Saturday, the transition to War Thunder, and then back again on the Sunday. It started, and the attack was like, I don't know if it was the first one, but one of them quite soon after, they brought these big, scorpion, walking murder gun and I was like, what's that? Like that. And we got absolutely trounced, and we sort of saved scum because sometimes it's as close as like, you just click one or two things in the wrong order or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like your person was like out in the forest and they like landed right next to them or, something. And you're like, oh, that feels a bit cheesy, but I can either start from scratch again or we can just kind of, so we've done probably about 3 save scums so far, but and I say that in jest, I don't care. It's just, but it was like, chat was like, we just talked about it and was like, yeah, let's go back because we go back 10 minutes and you just missed this one thing or, and I think we had one, there was a fight of my sniper rifle person. I put them into combat mode, like I draft them into combat mode. And so they do nothing else and just wait. But if they wait too long, they might like be starving or pass out from tiredness.
Right.
And I think that's exactly why she was like my toughest person with the sniper rifle, and everything hinges on like her doing well in the fight, and the rest can kind of back her up. And I put her on draft so early that she fell asleep as they were just approaching our perimeter. And it was like fainted from being too tired. I was like, okay, this is probably. And then we lost the fight horribly, and it was like, yeah, this is a save scum. I pressed one button too early, so there's quite a few learning moments. But yeah, it's super super fun, and my view is, whatever your circumstances are, wait for sales, whatever else. And I was blessed to get a copy of it. It's just, if you like the RimWorld kind of, or colony management type of thing, and you want, I'm playing on medium, which is the 2nd level out of 5 levels of difficulty. So 3 more above me. And I'm not that good, but it's a challenge. Because like even starting in different zones or with different people, they have different character traits and they play off better or worse against each other. One of my characters, I had a mother-daughter team and I lost the daughter. She bled out after being injured in battle because it took them so long to carry her across the compound that she was too badly bled out by the time they went to go and get bandages and that. And it's like, oh, if I'd known.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was one of the examples where we took it and we buried her, and all the other survivors, they have like, it's programmed so that they do like a prayer ceremony around the grave, and they ask you, do you want us to do this kind of prayer ceremony and all this kind of stuff. So there's some real nice nuance and really well thought out detail to the game. So you can tell it's one of those passion projects that's been really done by people that care and think about the consequences of what the game presents you with.
As opposed to RimWorld, where you likely get turned into food if you die.
I've heard so many stories about RimWorld.
Diurach takes your organs and harvests them and transports them to somewhere else, because apparently organs are not a privilege. Or they're a privilege, not a right or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, it's I've heard from others that have played it that went into a startup and did a random roll, and all 4 of their characters ended up with some really strong what is it, like these rifles, the what are they called?
Which one, the sniper rifles or
the railguns?
Oh, railguns.
Yeah. All 4 started with railguns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 But that's what you think, right? Okay, so here's the one little last snippet, right, before we move on, is from this one, is that I was getting to a point where I was like, we've got the combat covered, right? As long as I don't misclick things, or I draft people not too early but not too late, and I keep an eye and I have my fortifications in place, it's all good. And then they started getting things like sleeping parasites, so they couldn't sleep properly, and getting poisoning themselves by eating raw food because I hadn't told them not to, and and then other things like either the storms, or like it was hot. I think we did the jungle session or whatever, and the game throws so many other things at you. So it's like, well, you get lulled again into like, oh, you're fighting off these bots. And then it's like, no, actually, you're just trying to survive the dry season when all your crops dried up and you've got literally nothing to eat anymore. And it lets you make emergency rations out of cloth. Yeah. Yeah. Would you like a bark sandwich? Yeah, there's plenty of shenanigans.
I've actually tried bark bread. It's very chewy. Very chewy.
Oh dear.
You wouldn't think bread would be chewy.
No,
You'd be wrong.
Right.
No, it's not right. It's not right at all. You'd think we had the technology to move past that, but needs must and all that. Yes.
I was going to say, I didn't want to add any more things on, but you just reminded me with the food about the sausage palms.
Yeah.
So they had these trees with sausages growing like bananas upside down in them, and they taste so much like sausages that the vegetarians in the game refuse to eat them.
Oh my god, that would be perfect. Like, and I'm talking real life implications here. If we had trees and stuff that tasted like meat and felt like meat, I would be eating trees. That's that's how simple it is. Well, I say that, but it's probably wouldn't be very satisfactory.
Nice.
Nice. But we keep pointing them out and ruining the entire segue. It's this. I think this is our shtick. I think this is our shtick.
All the way around. It becomes better that way.
Yeah.
Tune in to like season 69. It'll be better that way.
That's what she said. We might need to mark this one 18 plus. Anyway, so we've both had some shenanigans in Satisfactory. And recently, update 8 came out with one very large change where they've gone from their old engine over to Unreal. And my god, the difference in how it runs, like it runs so much more smoothly. And it looks so pretty. So you remember those stone pylons that release gas? Yeah, where the air kind of looks a bit green. Yeah, no, it absolutely looks terrifyingly toxic now.
Oh dear.
It's so 110% creepy now looking at those. Like you feel the impending doom of nausea and everything by just looking at them. It's amazing.
Okay.
And well, one thing that I'm not happy about is, of course, that all the plants, the trees, and everything has respawned. But hey, that means more fuel, really. Another thing to be aware of for anyone updating to that, if you haven't already, all the animals will also respawn. Yes. So that means if you've cleared out a place to have a base, there's suddenly going to be animals there again.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. However, they also have more settings for the behavior of the animals in the settings. So, and to anyone who needs to use the arachnophobic mode, you need to turn that back on again. But that being said, like the world is just like they've added a few quality of life things, and it's like the new look of some of the zones. Oh, it's such a gorgeous game. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and playing it. And speaking of which, my current save is now with a playtime of just over 100 hours. This game is gonna swallow so many hours for me. Like I'm considering tilting over to just making Satisfactory type content together with maybe some Starfield and some other things like that. That is how insane it is for me. Like I have this very clear vision in my head of large scale factory and getting resources from all the places on the map, and yeah, that is how massive this is for me now.
That's cool.
So yeah,
that's good though, because you obviously vibe and really get into it in a very deep way, and I'm glad that, because it's nice when a game comes out along like that. You know, not necessarily have to be brand new in the world, but just, you know, new to you or more, or just seeing it in a different light. That's awesome. And I haven't yet started up Satisfactory since the update, so I want to also thank Tiger for being very careful and conscientious about what he's describing in that. But we're going to have a look at that in a wee while, and I'm sure it's going to blow me away as well. I mean, I'm just thinking of, like, not the jank stuff in Ark Ascended, but there's some really good stuff like the fog. The atmospheric fog is excellently done. So when you were describing the gas, I'm like, I can easily picture how that's going to look. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything that makes the game more immersive.
And like the things they've added that I know you are really going to enjoy building, like I'm looking forward to hearing your reaction to it too. So it's for those who have played it and have played along with it, you know perfectly well what I'm talking about. And yeah, it's they've added more utilization for some things too. One thing you know about that Can we talk about this, by the way? What happened towards the last episode we recorded?
What? Which particular part?
The hog, the rhino thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, for those who don't know, you really should go check out the YouTube series that Grumbles has with Satisfactory. I may or may not be a guest there. I don't know. Let's not spoil it. I am. But last episode we did, we went out to try something at our so-called resort. When we got there, I witnessed something that I've never seen in this game, and that's like, I have 100 hours in my current save, and I have many other saves. I have watched plenty of content on this, YouTube and Twitch and so on. I have never seen this particular thing before. The jetpack hog. Which was, I mean, like, what? So that caught me completely by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just glad it kind of hurled itself into our stairs and detonated, because I dread to think what would happen if it hit us.
Yeah.
But I looked it up later. And I think the wording is something, I pasted it to you further up there. Yes, the jetpack hog. It is possible for any fluffy-tailed hog or alpha hog to be replaced by a special variant equipped with a jetpack. The game appears to randomly assign this status to one hog in the world on game load. Saving and loading will therefore not preserve which one it is, and repeats this process anytime the current jetpack hog is killed. Having a jetpack does not change the hog's idle behavior, but totally alters its attacks. Instead of a normal ground-based bull rush, a jetpack hog will briefly pause to wind up its jetpack, then launch into a spinning leap towards the pioneer's location. so let's just talk about this. Like, randomly assign one hog on load.
Yep.
That means that if we'd had a tiny stop and reloaded the game before we went out there, he wouldn't have been jetpacked, or possibly. And that's saying something. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
The map is massive. There's a lot of them. And through that, you got a jetpack. Yeah.
That one's Barry as well, and he's been bugging me because that was going to be my resort area. It's not anymore for reasons, but and stupid Barry would usually do one attack, scare me because I'd forget he was there.
Yeah.
And then he used to go in the water and sail off down the river.
Yeah, he'd be like...
And I've never actually had to fight him fully because he does one attack and then he goes in the water and floats off. And then this last time you were like, come over here and look at something. Because you were just out of its radius as well. It's like aggro range. So I went a little bit further down the ramp and jumped up and had a look over the edge. And the next thing you know, kablooey. It was pretty hilarious sequence. Like you said, the chance of that happening and it being Barry and it being the one right there. Yeah. And then it being stuck. It was under the natural archway when it saw me. So it attacked from there. And that's why it careered off and bounced off that natural archway into the building.
It caught me so completely off guard. I've never seen that. And I don't think I ever will see it again. That was just ridiculous. But the cool thing was the jetpack that you just got. Normally, we would have to go further up in the tech tree for you to be able to use it.
Yep.
The change with this big update is you can actually use solid biofuel to power it.
Yep.
So
I couldn't believe when I saw that as part of the update.
I'm looking forward to seeing you careening off buildings and crash landing because you don't manage your fuel and so on, and because it's gonna add so many moments.
I don't see that happening.
I do.
So do I.
I'm sorry to throw you under the bus there, buddy, but I do.
No, that's fair.
So yeah, no, it's been so much fun to be part of that creation process because one, the game allows me to just chase the dopamine, and two, it allows me through you to play a character and just enjoy that kind of thing and try to build up something. But it also allows me to explore a part of my way of role-playing where I do support work. That is my thing. I'm not a main character in my own head. I'm always there to help others get better, to be able to achieve what they want, and I'm really getting that in this, and I'm so enjoying it.
that's
So-
super fun. I'm enjoying having you along there. And yeah, basically anybody that watches that series, most of the progress since Tiger joined is coming from Tiger. And most of the only thing slowing Tiger down is me. But it works.
Well, you
and
say
it's a lot of
slowing
fun.
down. I don't see it that
Yeah.
way.
No, but I mean, like, I think for people that are playing it in a more traditional let's
Yeah.
progress and like beat the game kind of thing, it's definitely slowing it down. But it's just not the way we're playing it, or at least not the way I'm playing it, and we've got a nice dynamic there, so it's very enjoyable.
I wonder if there's so I'm not gonna open that up to a possibility, but I wonder how any guests would react to coming into this dynamic. It would they would have to be very on board with how we do things in that case.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure
think
that
it'll be
would
quite
work.
challenging.
Yeah.
I can imagine people would want to come along, and I want to have people come along as well. But I think it would depend, and the scenario would have to be set.
I think we would need to have
carefully.
some sort of temp, just
Yeah.
hire in the FNG and say, yo, new guy, how about you work on this while we're gone, eh?
Yeah, or even bring ask the expert or whatever, and have them do
Or-
something
oh.
expertly, but like they do it off to the side somewhere, and then
That
it's
could
up
be
to us to learn from
cool.
it or not. That could be quite fun.
That
I
could
also
actually
want to
be
do a
cool.
thing where we build a racetrack.
Oh yeah,
And we invite a bunch of people to come along and race with us.
we are definitely doing that. We are so doing that, and I know what vehicles we're using for that. Actually, we're probably gonna have to build several racetracks, honestly. Because one is going to have to be the factory carts, which I haven't tried after update 8. I'm actually very okay, we're gonna right, let's not should
Stay
we
on target.
yeah so this is a YouTube exclusive, by the way. So, and you'll never find it on Twitch, at least not the save that me and Grumbles are playing on together. But maybe there'll be a YouTube stream of it. I don't know. What do you think of YouTube streaming? Fucking nailed that. My
You
God.
did. You did. I wasn't even going to point it out. I just thought that was so slick. We'll let people work them out for themselves. That was the plan anyway. So here's the thing. It felt and feels super exciting in a way, because it's almost like going on Twitch the first time. It's just such a big thing.
Yeah.
And integral to everyday like modern life for the last whatever 10 15 years, that it feels really weird to say like I'm on YouTube, like even with the VOD content, and also like with Twitch at the beginning I had no real clue what these things were, because I'd just been like workaholicing and not really aware of these kind of creative channels. And now I was aware of YouTube, but YouTube for me was just a tool to get to like the specific piece of content. It sounds funny saying that, but I wasn't going there to be entertained. I was going there to get a specific, like, I need to know how this piece of machinery works or whatever, right? So seeing the content creation and the creative side of things, artistry in all the different forms was very new to me, like 5 years ago. And now I got very excited. I got the buzz again of like, oh, this is something different, something new, which I didn't feel for the other streaming opportunities for whatever reason, just like naturally. But YouTube felt very like, okay, this is kind of a bit nerve-wracking. I'm using an extension or a plugin in OBS, and it's working super smooth. I can either just go live ad hoc and then it kind of takes data across, or I can set up the stream, schedule it in the YouTube webpage in advance, which gives me a few more opportunities to kind of plug it a different way, or different hashtags and stuff like that, different descriptions. Either way that it works. I haven't had any technical issues as such. Uploads, downloads, all those kind of things, everything fine. I love having all my previously streamed content directly as a VOD on both platforms. Even on Twitch, it's just an archive effectively. Nobody looks at really, or not that many. So it's nice to have like the VOD platform with my content on it straight away after stream. I don't have to like make some edits or highlights or something and upload them or whatever it takes. All that is gone now, so that's cool. The chat is like, feels like years behind in terms of like functionality and what you can do and all that, and it just feels a bit kind of clunky. Basically it feels like you're live streaming on a VOD platform. It's kind of how I could just describe how it feels to me. Whereas Twitch feels like it's just so all about, it's so focused on the live stream content, which probably explains why a lot of the other things are not so good, or not leading, I should say. Yeah, so I like all of those aspects. It's nice to see viewership and like viewing hours and stuff like that, all those metrics that mean something in the background and for a content creator, sort of ticking along as well. That's nice that I don't feel the same pressure of like, oh, I must get this, you know, Satisfactory video out this week or something, otherwise I won't have any new YouTube content, and then I won't get any, the numbers won't move on and won't make any progress. So it's nice to know that I can kind of, you know, 2-for-1 deal kind of thing. It's a bit weird because of the Twitch guidelines, which are, you know, state that you shouldn't merge the chats together. So it's a bit weird managing two chats. So far, I'm avoiding the issue of like merging them and just seeing what happens down the line. But I think they'll probably change that at some point. They just need to ease up a little bit. They've already, you know, kind of let the horses go, as it were, with multicasting or whatever to both simulcasting. So, yeah, it's definitely not as good a live experience as Twitch, but that's also large part of that is because that's where my base is, you know. But we've been able to grow the YouTube channel a little bit and quite consistently. You can get all the comments and things on your VODs, which you wouldn't normally see on Twitch, which is a nice thing as well. People can like we got past the 500 subscriber goal, and Lady L was able to go on to the VOD from one of the live streams afterwards with a comment and say, "Oh, congratulations, you got the milestone," and all that, you know. So it was just nice to be able to see the comments system kicking in afterwards for that content, rather than a VOD on Twitch, which feels just very much gone and forgotten forever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because the one thing I've noticed from the few YouTube streams I've done, before it became a simulcast opportunity, was that the storage of VODs is forever. Like, it's treated as a YouTube video, as if you uploaded it. And that means it stays, and that means people can rewatch it in their own tempo and leave a comment right there and then. So, like, I know we're getting into the whole whipped horse again with why doesn't Twitch allow for more steady content or uploaded content or pre-recorded content, like shorts, like TikTok, like, you know, all of these services that they're working directly against. But I think they've made it clear that they want to focus on the live part of it. That is their foray, and they are more and more embracing the idea of people using other platforms to bring people over to Twitch. And I think, like, for us as a content creator, the way that the content stays out there, and like you said, people are able to comment on it, super nice. That means the content is being seen, it's being appreciated, and we are able to pick up on that. If someone watches a VOD of mine on Twitch, there's no way for them to interact with me. There used to be a way where moderators and the streamer got a notification that this comment has been left on a VOD. I think they've completely removed that, because it would insert itself as part of the chat on the timestamp, but like comments work way better as that. So I don't know. Like one thing that I've seen a lot of people do now that the simulcasting has opened up is, for instance, on TikTok, they have their face cam and so on, but with a text label saying responding on and insert platform here, where they are actively trying to draw people over to that platform. And I think that's going to be the thing for most people. And I think if I were to do simulcasting, that's probably what I do too, where I would try to draw people to my Twitch, because that is my main platform. That is where I'm monetized. You know, it's all of those things. And yeah, it's it's a bit of a new landscape, really. We'll see if they change anything, because they did that whole change for non-affiliates, where they could stream to both YouTube and Twitch without any issue, and then they opened up the partner exclusivity and so on and so forth. Like there was a lot going on, and then suddenly they went away from the exclusivity again, and then they said, no, you can't do simulcasting, even though they already opened up for, as long as it's not the same data stream. And like there was a whole thing, and now we're here again. So things are changing in Twitch's landscape, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that, because it might bring other creators over to Twitch, or Twitch creators over to YouTube for that reason, that they enjoy how VODs are treated. Like I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. It is. But speaking of other creators, I want to tell you about a fantastic interaction I had recently. Where I was playing Starfield, and I see a follow, and I say welcome to them, and when they speak up in chat, they're a partner, and as weird as it's gonna sound, I think a partner badge to me as a partner lights up more in chat than to, let's say, an affiliate getting a message from a partner, or a non-affiliated streamer getting a message from a partner. They're like, oh, that's a weird badge. Oh, well. But to me, that's like, oh, that's another streamer. That is definitely another streamer, and they've done something. This is a channel that is either branded through, like, you know, War Thunder or World of Warships channels, or they are an actual streamer that's done well for themselves. It talked a bit back and forth, and had very, very wholesome and cool interactions. Well, I say wholesome. It was my channel, so plenty of innuendo, plenty of lewd, but yeah.
I was already pressing X to down.
But I later went over to their channel, and I'm greeted by, first and foremost, some very questionable tags, but I just giggled. I giggled so much, because, like, okay, this makes sense as to the reactions and the chatter, and this wonderful community that was super interactive and talking, and it was just so much fun to see. And Finek, who is the streamer I'm talking about, she's based in France. Don't know where she's from, because she has a predominantly, not only predominantly, like, it is almost 100% an American accent to me. I'm not sure if she is American. I haven't talked to her about that, but it was just such a nice interaction, and being greeted by the community, by her, talking a bit about something we have in common, which is ADHD. She also has ADHD. and being able to kind of relate to, oh yeah, I'm having this thing happen in my game, and just sends me on a wild discovery journey, and she's on a completely different path in Starfield, but it just, like, I used some time there, like, but by also going down into the panels below stream, and that's not something I do often, but it made me realize something very, very important. In the panels for Finek, it's described that they have bipolar disorder, and if they ever say, okay, we're dropping a subject right now, then that, because this can potentially trigger a bipolar episode. I was like, okay, that is very important for someone in chat to know, actually. And that made me go into kind of an introspective for myself. What are some of the things I do that potentially could be important for chat to know about? For instance, I've learned that with my ADHD, there's something called emotional dysregulation. Meaning, some of the reactions I give aren't controlled by me. I have no even an inkling control of suddenly becoming angry or suddenly yelling because I'm super excited for no reason. You know, it's that thing. And that can come off very strangely to some. And even to me, sometimes I catch myself in having one of these and I'm like, hold on, why did that happen? And I'm just thinking, if I have that explained to people, that if I say that, okay, let's drop this subject because I can feel that something is happening, or for instance with my auditory sensory issues, like if I start having sensory overload, that's when I can very much easily get to that point where I'm reacting without having control over it. And so the ability to say, okay, we're stopping doing this thing because it is getting on my nerves. Like, I'm just thinking of the importance of portraying something like that. How do we do that on Twitch? Because we can't really sit there and talk about it every single time. We need some way of showing that, and I think, like, what I read in the panels, because I also presented this when I shouted her out next time she came into the channel, and people were like, oh, okay, I'll go read, and they read through, and Finek really appreciated that. And I think if someone did that for me, you know, like if I had something that could be a potential issue, if something is said in chat or such, then I would feel seen, I would feel appreciated. So yeah, I don't know, what are your thoughts about the use of panels? Like, how do you feel about them?
I think it's a good idea. I tend to look at certainly the description that the streamer puts in there. Like if I'm looking for raid targets, for example, or somebody's just been hanging out and I want to know a little bit more. And I think the about panel, that usually drives me towards either I want to look at the about panel for more info, which I generally do, probably 99 times out of 100, or not. And yeah, I think you're right in that. I think that I usually look at people's rules. What rules have they set? And I look at their about. And then that gives me a general feeling of like, okay, this is probably how this is going to sort of play out in terms of interaction. And then if I'm inclined to do so, I spend some time there sort of getting the vibe and reading the room, as it were. And then either those things match up or they don't, you know? But yeah, I think, and I would definitely encourage. Makes me I always go back and look at mine then and think, oh, I probably wrote this like 3 years ago. And maybe some of it's not so valid anymore. But yeah, it's I mean, I use mine sort of to tell a little story and just make people keep it positive. Yeah, so I think it's a good idea, and I think I would encourage people, if they haven't done so already, to make sure that they sort of fill those things out, because you're probably missing out on potential additionally adding people to community, or in the worst case scenario, people are joining in and then not having very much fun or not understanding how it works.
Yeah,
and it doesn't happen that often in my experience, but it does happen where people think it's one thing and it's not that thing. And then sometimes you get the scenario where people react badly to that, or try and push for things because it's like, do that thing, be I want you to be this other sort of version of you, or whatever, and do the things and say the things I want to do. Yeah, so it's interesting, but it definitely is a good opportunity for more positive things. And I think the thing about what might trigger people in that is a really good point. That I think you have to do that in some sort of concise way. I would avoid the whole, like, how do I phrase that? Like, you don't want to necessarily make it. I don't know. It's different for me. I'm not looking for somebody to be fully open book and like, this is my life's story and struggles. But then I'm not necessarily put off by that if that's what people do. It's just, you got to think that if you're trying to just get what's the core of the message, I suppose is the point. So
yeah, like you need to essentially have your panels be almost an elevator pitch.
Yeah,
where you get the point across quickly, but you also catch the attention of people. I with all of this braining that I've done around this, I think I'm going to be redesigning my panel sometime soon.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good point, and it reminds me to go and keep it fresh.
Yeah, definitely is. So this is your reminder to keep it fresh out there. Speaking of keeping something fresh, it's disappearing before it even became a thing. HypeChat.
Hey,
it's like, didn't it arrive like a month ago or two or something? Like, it's not long ago it arrived, and now it's going away.
Yeah. I think they've tried to kickstart it before, and they sort of threw it, and people were like, well, that's just rubbish and not quite as good and comfortable and familiar with what we've got. I think the hard part for Twitch is, because they're obviously trying to eke as much economically out of it as they can, is that you're dealing with, like, you're against the entire swarm of the internet. And if the swarm is very comfortable and familiar with a certain thing, even if, and ironically, you see a lot of people with backlash even if they don't necessarily use the thing. Like, people might be like, well, I'm not buying bits, but I hate this other thing more because of the whole resistance to change thing. So, but I think that they launched it into a bit of a damp squib. It didn't really like make sense. Like, from a viewer's point of view, it's like, we're actually asking me to put quite a lot into this in a way.
Yeah.
The way they started it, I think it was like things like defaulting to $100 and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know. I think they marketed it, or it turned into something that looked like a cash grab,
Yeah.
And as soon as you've got that stain on it, people are going to be like, doesn't matter how many times you reboot that or relaunch it, we still remember that you came in and just tried to put your hand in our wallet. So no.
Yeah, and like, now they're doing something to bits again. I don't know if this is going to stay. I think it's in a beta test kind of thing right now. But Stats has it on his channel where you can pretty much do the same thing with bits that you could do with HypeChat. Because HypeChat would stay on top, like almost be a pinned message for a tiny bit, all depending on how much you paid. And they're now experimenting with, can we do this with bits instead? And I'm like, please don't. Can we, like, I feel like I'm not being seen or heard as a content creator when they just kind of throw this at our faces. I don't know who they're asking. I don't know who they're talking to regarding what is a feature a streamer wants. Because this doesn't feel like something a streamer wants. I get that they're a business and they're trying to drive sales of things, but how would this drive sales in a different way than bits already are? You know? Because for many content creators, bits are a way of us having a million different alerts, which is fun. You know, you can have your Yamato guns or your church organs or kookaburras or whatever, and it'll allow the community to interact with you in a certain way. But I don't see. What will a pinned message from someone really be motivation for them to use this more? Or am I not seeing this from the right perspective? Like, is this something that's aimed at much larger channels? Like, we're talking Carnage and so on, where the ability to pin a message in a way makes it more visible to the streamer. Like, I honestly don't know how they're working.
Yeah, I think that they just came up with the pin chat thing, like for moderators and broadcasters, which is quite a cool feature. We've used it quite a bit recently for giveaways and stuff like that. Or just to let people know if there's something going on, like if we're in a deep RP scene and people are kind of trying to interact and we've got alerts turned off or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a cool feature. And then they obviously just brainstormed how could we maybe monetize that. Or maybe it was part of the original plan. I don't know. But so there's definitely an approach which makes sense as well, which is like get people comfortable with things. And your point about someone like Ko or whatever, obviously they do look to lead these things in. With people get comfortable with it and see Ko using it and Ko being okay with it, doesn't necessarily have to be super happy, but he's just like, yeah, it's just that thing and it works and it's fine, and I get some revenue from it, which would be kind of a classical Ko take on something like this, I would imagine. If he wasn't like super happy or unhappy on it, then you got to think that that's like, I don't know, 12 to 25,000 viewers each time getting comfortable with it and then taking that comfort and familiarity with them across the Twitch platform wherever else they go, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty smart, but it could also end up with things coming in and becoming a norm that just don't really work. So I think you're right in that there's definitely still a gap between however they sound these things and when they become a reality. I think some of it possibly relates to like a cultural and sort of difference within sort of the capitalist interpretation and society, with it being strongly US based. I think there's certain things there that might be more acceptable. Doesn't mean that we as a viewer or as a user of that service might agree or like it, but I think there's a certain, America's like all in. It's always the land of extremes. It does everything to extremes, good, bad, and otherwise. And I just see it as like, well, why wouldn't you leverage this? Why wouldn't you make this part of your financial sort of, opportunities for revenue in that? And then the consumers either flock to it or they don't. That's the swap. So, I think the part of the challenge they face is that they're victims is not the right word. They're beholden to what I used to call in another financial sector when I used to work in IT. There is like this swarm mentality, where people flock or swarm to something because that's the cool thing that works. We like it. It might not even have rhyme or reason to it, like why do birds go and sit in a certain tree?
Yeah,
but the fact is you can't fight that. The swarm is typically there, and the best you can usually do with a swarm is scare it and then it runs off. You can't, it's hard to attract them. The only way you can attract them is by offering really sweet stuff, to keep going with that analogy. Like, here's a lovely crop field, or here's some apple trees, or whatever, So,
some larger ad revenue.
Yeah, which usually means you're having to give something out,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a slice of something or whether it's something that's costing you directly money. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see where it goes. But I think they've got a huge problem just in the fact with the swarm mentality, because everybody's so comfortable and used to coming and sitting, in that bits field and having their food and whatnot, and Twitch gets their stake at the purchase point, but then the bits belong to the person. They can use them however they want, and I guess they're always looking for how they can reach in a little bit further and take a cut somewhere. I don't know. So, but it's hard to do it. It's like, well, if you get people to buy things for a bit more or whatever, or use them more often, with the trade-off being that the streamer gets something, but so does the company. That doesn't necessarily mean it's pure evil or something we'd be dead against. It's just, how are they developed, and how can we be empowered as well to, if we're convinced, and I don't mean brainwash, but if we're convinced, okay, this could be a good move, this could work for both parties, we could then give that on to our communities and our viewership and say, look, this is why I think this makes sense, like we've done with the advertising thing. When it started, it was horrendous.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of comfortable and we're used to it. But as we also talked about briefly in the editorial was, what's this nonsense of like, I can have 3 minutes an hour, but if I want to do 4 minutes, I can't do that every hour.
Yeah.
It's got to cut into the segment. That's nonsense again. So I don't know, constantly, I don't know who decides that and what the reasons and rationale are behind it and what the numbers are.
But Grumbles, you can run 2 minutes every half hour in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, I can interrupt my viewing experience even more often. Yeah.
No, it's
not like,
what we want.
how about I take a break for 4 minutes instead of 3, so it's slightly better for my health. I do more leg stretches and whatever, get the blood flow going. Don't have to rush making a cup of coffee or whatever, and everybody knows he'll be back in 4 minutes, and it might be a little bit like annoying at first, but a fixed break that everybody can depend on, the audience and the creator, is way better. And ultimately the advertisers have their slot and they get a chance to, but obviously I guess they don't want to be lost in the mire of like, oh, well, no, if there's even more, an extra minute of ads, no one will pay attention to our ad potentially, or whatever the thinking and the numbers are. I don't know, but that struck me as particularly odd when I looked at the configuration options. But anyway, don't want to go too often to that dead horse again. But
no, like we've been whipping that quite a lot, but and I think we probably will keep on doing it because ultimately we care about this platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see where they're going, because they definitely are seeing more competition from other platforms. Well, predominantly YouTube. YouTube is the only platform I see that has any sort of staying power or ability to even remotely try to challenge them. But like you've already said, it's not quite there. But they might get there. They might. So Twitch has some stuff to do, and I don't know why, but I have this weird, sneaky feeling that Turbo might also see a change in the future. This because of other signals in the market. Has to do with rumblings of what they are going to give partners access to more in the future. So I'm just, yeah, with this push towards ads and this push towards more free stuff for partners, I'm just wondering if we're going to see a massive push towards Turbo being a thing. And which then could also signal taking away direct subs. Because, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I think if that happens, what they will do is you'll see a huge growth in alternative services like Patreon and similar.
Yep.
And
even Discord. Discord also has a members thing now.
Yeah. The big concern for me would be that it would push Twitch too far into the advertisement dependency, and that we'd end up with it no longer being a question anymore. It'd just be like, you can run ads every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 or what, but it basically that Twitch starts becoming the new broadcast television, and in terms of advertising saturation, and that would be a tragedy. That would be you taking the essence of what Twitch does differently, combined obviously with the live content creation, right? But you're essentially that mix of live content creation all the time, 24/7 globally, for those privileged enough to have access to it. I should state as well. And if you turn that into what we know now or used to know or have historically come to know as terrestrial television, it's going to make it that much harder for the content creators to not, they'll keep doing their thing, but it just helps, it breaks that continuity and that immersion. And, imagine you're drawing a drawing that takes, 15 minutes, or you're making a piece of art or whatever, and, 10 minutes into that, you get an ad break for 1 minute even. Gone. You're gone, right? You might come back. A lot of people would, and the lurkers and that, but a lot of people will also, if not go and leave the channel, they at least might no longer be interacting in chat and with the streamer, because the continuity's got broken.
We need more ads that can be on screen without interrupting the content, and then instead run full interrupting screen ads things on VODs.
Yeah,
we've said it before.
At least the press of a button at our choosing. Yeah,
right. Yeah. When we take a break, let us do one full screen thing, but let all the others be banner ads. Let them be insertions into chats or something like that. And I would be okay with it. I know many others will be okay with it, but ultimately we'll just have to see where Twitch goes with things. And speaking of where things are going, where's Pete?
Where's Pete? Pete's off sailing the seas looking for his brothers. Pete got a surprise letter, which also came with a bit of audio to make it even more immersive for the audience. And apparently a letter washed up on the shore of Safe Haven, where the Sunshine Fleet were, and on the island of Tatooine, as Pete liked to say. And Pete just had a one of those emotional moments where he was like, "Oh crikey, I better go and grab the few things I need and set sail and go looking." So he's gone off looking for hopefully it'll be a genuine message, and hopefully it will result in him being reunited with his brothers, for better or for worse. We shall see.
We shall see. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with this, I think it was early October, I sat down and I wrote a message to Pete McKraken from Phil and Pat. And I recorded a little song. Many are going to be familiar with it. Some are probably going to have an earworm. I'm sorry, Stats. To Leave Her Johnny. But slightly re-recorded with Leave Her Peter. And this was like I've been kind of brewing on this since before October, but I finally sat down and did it in October. And I schemed and plotted together with some other regulars in the role playing community, to try to find a good moment and a good way of delivering this. And Shion fabulously delivered it in a good moment too, because it was becoming clear that Pete was probably gonna not be playing Atlas anymore for a bit. as you usually do. Like you have your long stint in Atlas, and then you like it's becoming clear when you no longer have enough interactions or such that drives you. And the funny thing was, because I don't know if we've talked about this, but I certainly can't remember, but when you described the possible endings you had planned, I was kind of like, what? Oh, wow. Okay. And why don't you tell the audience?
Yeah, so I had mapped out approximately. I never like to have like a fully set script, because you never know what's going to happen and what others are going to bring up for you in that. But the season was certainly in significant sort of decline, waning towards the close, for a lot of people, as these things always do. And you're right in that the interactions. So Pete thrives on a combination of his own, is the sort of the three elements are his own silliness and whatever it comes up with to do, or whatever I think that character would do next. That's his kind of wandering free spirit side. His interactions with those sort of close to him, in his sort of company or his small family setting kind of thing, which has developed sort of organically over time. And the third element, and all three of them are equally important for me to be having the most fun with Pete and feel like I'm expressing Pete to his fullest, is interactions with sort of meaningful interactions that go beyond the odd quip here and there. It depends on the characters and their kind of standing in society and in the world together, respectively. But there has to be something that involves more than just a few jokes here and there, and that third category, the opportunities were drying up quite rapidly, and which is just it's no criticism of anyone. That's just the nature of role play in these kind of seasons. So I'd mapped out approximately 2 to 3, probably two main sort of endings for the season. But the main one was some method, not fully fleshed out again to allow more opportunity for improvisation in the moment, but a realization for Pete that for all the fun and the loving relationships and everything, he that 5-year story in real time of wanting to be reunited, or at least know what's come of his brothers and that, with a slight nod of appreciation towards one of the characters he met this season, who was playing a sort of a ferryman type thing, who intimated that one of his brothers, his elder brother, Phil, had potentially died, or at least suffered some sort of bad fate. So, and that was done in a very tasteful role-playing style. So all summed up, it was like, okay, Pete probably is reaching the point where he needs to get on a boat and go. And for me, out of character, it was like, okay, at least one of the three pillars is kind of gone at the moment for keeping Pete kind of in full swing. And the first one, funnily enough, gets a little bit hindered sometimes as well, because going off and wandering when there's maybe you won't bump into anybody for days at a time kind of thing. It's not a problem, but you can only do so much of that. So it's already a weakened pillar to start with. So yeah, I thought that he probably was going to either go off searching for them with no knowledge or hint, or I would either invent something for myself, or something would come up randomly out of my control that would hint at a direction for him to take. And then that's where you guys came in with this story element and way of delivering it as well, in a sort of immersive, mysterious way, which naturally tugs at Pete's curiosity and his sort of lust for adventure and desire to be reunited with his brother. So that was kind of like the main ending. And then the other one was not so much an ending. I'm not going to divulge it fully because I want to keep that in my book of tricks for any future season, because there might be a smaller whitelisted season, 6.1 or something down the line. But it involved basically Pete having a bit of a hiatus, going off looking for his brothers or returning home or whatever, and me playing one of the other two brothers as a sort of cameo or mini season within a season kind of thing.
Right.
That one I'd been seriously weighing up for since before season 6 had begun. So I already had that as a potential thing I wanted to pursue. But the timing was really difficult, because it essentially means me, in game mechanic terms, ideally killing Pete and bringing a new character along, even if they were essentially Pete, but a triplet brother of his. So there's all the mechanics and setting up around that is difficult to manage. And then the waning of the season started to happen really quite rapidly. So it was like, well, there's no point me bringing this cameo character in who doesn't have very many people to sort of interact and make a story with. So that was the other ending that I had in mind. But this one fit so snugly. The only thing that I did wrong with it is, and I kind of knew it right after the moment, but it was like one of those, oh, well, I've done it now, was I should have, my intention was to wrap up Pete's journey for this season on that coming weekend. And then on the Thursday, I think we did some Ark earlier or something for a few hours, and then we jumped into Atlas afterwards, because we had the ride along and all that with Mouse, Shion's character, his surrogate granddaughter. So they had that emotional thing, and after about an 11-hour day or something, I got hit with that. And I should have, the one little mistake I made, and it's purely on me, is I should have held on to the letter and ended on a cliffhanger of, like, Pete being too nervous to open the letter and wondering what it was. And that would have led me to the weekend. And on Saturday, I could have done the talk with the crew, have a big meeting, have a gathering of everybody, open the letter, go through it all. And then that would have been even more emotional on top of it all. But at least that would have been more controlled, and I would have had the opportunity to have Pete say his farewells to everybody. But as it was, Pete, after that long day, with being on the ride along with Mouse, seeing his surrogate granddaughter, flourish into this brave young woman who wanted to go out and adventure and be part of the Navy and all that. If you put that in the context of 18th century or whatever, Pete was just couldn't have been more proud. But it also reiterated that whole, okay, I need to get going. I need to be finding my brother's time's ticking. Things are moving on. Yeah. Look how Mouse is no longer this scared little teenager. She'll be the next admiral of the Navy kind of thing in his eyes and his heart. So it's like, okay, I need to get looking for them again. So yeah, I got the timing slightly wrong at the end. However, it still worked, and I've had a lot of positive feedback that people enjoyed that moment, and it was very emotional, and all the chopping onions and stuff. I just wish I'd timed it, but that was partly out of character, just my own level of tiredness at that after a long day. I just wish I'd timed it so that I could have had that Saturday to say all the goodbyes in character. But since we might get another season, hopefully I've got a chance to clear some of those things up, and hopefully Mouse doesn't just run him through with a cutlass the next time she sees him for just going like that. And I thought it was very fitting in a way that he was already at full sail and taking off, and then he just heard Mouse scream like "Grandpa!" right at the end as he sailed off. It was quite funny. Out of character, I was like heartbroken. I was like, oh my god, I want to take Pete back and give her a last hug and explain where he's going. But like in character, he'd made his mind up and he was very emotional, so he was gone. So I just
he was set.
with it. Yeah,
he was a man with a plan suddenly.
Yeah,
for once.
Well, I wouldn't say it was that good of a plan, but
well, it was a plan at least.
And some booze and got on a boat and went.
Yeah, no, it was one. I think it took a lot of people by surprise, judging from reactions in chat and everything, and so it was fun to be able to play a tiny cog in that moment. Because I personally looked at that and I went, that's a very Pete thing to do. This fits. So
yeah. And again, for what it's worth, I literally had no idea that it was you singing. I think partly because of the emotions at the time for Pete and everything, and that kind of being 5 years worth of storytelling on and off. So yeah, it was definitely a surprise, and it was a sincere test of my improvisational skills. But I think we got a great end scene for the season. Even if I wish I had the wherewithal to carry it through for one more session.
It was though. I think you could. I don't think a Saturday would have done well because you would have been brewing all that. You would have been. I think you'd overthink it, honestly.
Quite possibly,
and it could have gone from something that was just okay, it's emotion, to this is a script. Because that's a very fine line sometimes. It's hard. It's hard to not step too far over that. Like I've been there myself many times, and it's
yeah, I think it's more, I think mostly it's sentimental reasons, and most of that being out of character. It's mostly because I felt a little bit I felt a little bit what's the right word? I was concerned that I had robbed other players from the opportunity of saying their goodbyes in character. But, well, not goodbyes, farewells. So, yeah. But that said, it was difficult. You don't know who's going to be around and what people's availability and all those kind of things. So yeah, you're right. There would have been a lot of overthinking for sure. So as I said, mostly it's for sentimental, out of character reasons.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's very fair. But with Pete sailing off into the mist, you have returned to the City of Mist.
Nicely done.
What's going on in the City of Mist? That's been a while. It's been a while since we heard from the City of Mist.
So yeah, the rest of the gang had gotten themselves into the usual amount of bother. Funnily enough, not having my character Griff Willis, who's a TV cop, formerly a real detective, loosely inspired by a combination of Bruce Willis and I always forget the other guy, Mickey Rourke's characters in Sin City, certainly from a visual and kind of attitude perspective.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of Bruce Willis's character in Pulp Fiction in there too. Hence he's called Griff Willis. And yeah, it was really fun. Firstly, it's just fun to get back to the group because they're such a good bunch. We're gonna have to see what my scheduling's like for next year. But yeah, we've been playing together as a group on and off, most of us, for like, 5+ years as well. And it was fun to be able to just kind of relax a little bit and just get into a character and play a character rather than having to DM stuff or worry about all the other moving parts. And apparently one of the things that happened is that they'd gotten themselves into a bit of a scuffle and gotten quite badly beaten up because they didn't have the tough guy around with them, and they had a new appreciation, like in character, for having someone who can take a punch or two. So yeah, still enjoying that system because it's very role play heavy, and there's some dice there, but they're written and oriented around augmenting your storytelling moments and bringing an element of chance into them rather than I think I can't remember what they're called now. I'd have to look it up, but it's kind of like there'll be a role like, I don't know, take one on the chin or something, like, what, describe how I can see what you're describing and how you're trying to react to the scene here, but you're going to get punched.
Yeah.
By, if you throw yourself in front of this person throwing a punch at your friend, you're going to get hit because they're a professional fighter, blah, 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 yeah? So you kind of roll something like that, and then you have these things called tags. They're basically like traits or whatever that you've got, and they'll give you one additional die to roll. Yeah. So you just say, look, well, I'm, a tough cop who happened to have like martial arts training or something in the past as well. It's one of his hobbies. So can I use that? And the GM will be like, yeah, that makes sense. So you'll have an extra dice for that, and then you'll have a dice roll. So, but it's all oriented around what's going on in the scene and why your character would behave and utilize these various traits. And then, the other stuff behind the veil of the mist, which is this mythological, supernatural element going on for them as well that they're not fully in control of. So yeah, it was really good fun. It was really nice to be able to just kick back and just get into a character. The only thing that happened was I couldn't remember how he sounded. Like in my head I could picture it because it's this kind of Mickey Rourke, Bruce Willis, Sin City sort of style.
Yeah.
Very pensive, like thoughtful, few words, kind of like growly.
Yeah.
But then he just started sounding like Bobby Flawless because I've been playing that in ARC. So Griff was just Bobby, and one of the crew hangs out in chat fit, when she can, and she was just like, I knew he didn't sound like that. I couldn't remember what he sounded like because we were talking at the end of the session, the wrap up, but she was like, I'm totally in with it because I love Bobby. Bobby's hilarious. So it was fun to have Bobby in here, even if I knew that wasn't how Griff was supposed to sound. So that was quite cool. Took the pressure off.
I mean, I have no problem with reusing voices and such for characters. So it's, as long as you keep them distinct enough, I think I would have more problem if Griff was suddenly going around talking about Secret Wheatfield, I would be like,
the difference. Having a limited range of voices is one thing, but I was very keen on, and I went back through some of my notes beforehand and listened carefully to what they'd been through. So it's very important to me that he's got his distinct, like Griff is more forthright, more direct. But here's the one you'll love. And this started out as like bleed, but it kind of fit the character where we went as well in the session. But I managed to get the fish joke because I told it to the group at the beginning of the D&D session because we were talking about Atlas while we were warming up and people grabbing drinks and stuff, and they were like, well, so I told them about the whole presenting that joke over and over again how many times the crew had to listen through it all the season. But for Pete, he was always telling it to somebody for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, after all that build up, they were like, well, we've got to hear the joke. So I told the joke, and then we started spitballing the idea of, well, what if Griff just, had that, because he's a TV cop, so he's around, and so we played a line. There was a little sideline in it, which was he'd had a falling out with, the reason he'd been away is that he was on some big shoot. This is what they'd come up with. They'd been filming a new season of his show, and the reason he came back suddenly last week was that the season wasn't over, but he'd been written out of the end of the story. So, and the reason he'd been written out at the end of the story, the last few episodes, was because he kept insisting on trying to squeeze this joke into the show each week. So we took that joke and we made that canon in this world. And then right at the end, I had no idea about this. At the end, the big bad that we were dealing with, that we managed to talk them out of the circumstance rather than having to fight, which was amazing GMing, because they really went with it. This character was like a hard-nosed, we're gonna fight kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we managed to come up with good, convincing, character relevant reasoning, and the GM was so good that he was able to sort of bend follow the line of thinking, and didn't just accept everything, but was like, okay, this and this and this. Anyway, long story short, she was her mist influence was a goddess of the sea, and she manifested gills and had sharks as bodyguards and stuff, and lived in a big water aquarium tank and things. And so right at the end of it, that we're all leaving. We've wrapped up the session. We've talked them all down. She's going to turn to good now. Everyone's super happy. And then it's just as Griff's leaving, he stops at the door, looks back over his shoulder.
Oh, no.
And then I told the fish joke in character to the NPC. And then Griff puts his sunglasses on. Right, it's nighttime. It was a nighttime thing. Walks out, and as the door's closing, all you hear is a police squad. So we made it also canon that it's kind of like police squad kind of mashup thing. That's the series he's in, right? He thinks it's serious, but it's he's like the straight man in that straight man ex-detective in police squad, and you hear Griff, because he's got his sunglasses on at night and it's not well lit outside of this building, he goes stumbling over a bunch of trash cans, like the start of Police Squad where they always crash into the trash cans. And that was and scene.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That's good.
It was very cathartic session. I felt like it felt like it was, because I'm always a bit anxious to come back, even though we all know each other and we've played for so long. It's well, you guys have been having fun and moving the story forward, but the interactions were fantastic. And one of the things with City Mist system is right at the end of every session they have a it's gonna annoy me, I can't remember what the exact words of it are, but they have a I'm gonna look up what it's actually called in parallel, but they have a thing where you do each person, you go around the table and each of the players talks about which of the other characters influenced their character in a positive way this session. The character story kind of thing, and how did your character feel about that? And it's a come on, it's loading. I'm trying to think what the actual words are called. It's called geek out during the credits.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So they have how has the crew grown this session? So
yeah.
How, and then from each player's perspective, what do each of the characters see, and how do you think the crew's growing together? Then the second one is which character had the most meaningful interaction with your character during this session?
Right.
And then you get a help point or a hurt point, and you can spend a hurt point or a help point on that other character.
Okay, I like that system. That's cool.
Yeah. And then they've got which of your themes is under the most strain. If it collapses, what new aspect will show up in its place? So, but we didn't have that for this session. I'll send you a little screenshot because it's kind of a cool. I like it.
I like that
We used
idea.
to do this in D&D sessions, and that have a bit of a wash up and let everybody cool down afterwards. But time permitting. But this is quite nice the way they've kind of sort of not scripted it, but also made it relevant to what's going on in the game.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of cool.
I like systems that encourage role play, but you know, they also allow for a bit of extra through it. You know, I've recently started listening to a podcast called Dungeons and Daddies, where it's 4 people role playing as fathers. And they get thrown into this whole thing, and I'm not gonna say too much about it, but it's fabulous. You can find it on Spotify, and in this system, they dad jokes give XP to the character who tells them, but inflicts psychic damage on those around. And if you have to explain the dad joke to someone, that like they have a whole system around that, and I absolutely love that as an idea, since the whole thing evolves around them being fathers. Like, yeah. So it's something cool that allows interaction between characters and makes it more interesting to have that interactivity between people. That is always fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of those things I would love to see more of. But TCFreer has a question for us.
Hey, TC.
TC says, in a rose-tinted world, what one aspect of gaming would you like to see removed or completely changed? It's a very good question, and I think it's pretty much just one thing I would change, because games for me are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be a good way of interacting with others. They're, you know, they're there as a distraction for me. And one thing I would love to see removed in a rose-tinted world is toxicity. You know, just toxic behavior towards other people in a game, because we're all gamers. We're there to enjoy it together. Why be a prick towards others, you know? There's no reason for that, no matter how competitive it is, you know, or toxic language, or the use of the term cancer about something as frivolous as a CV, you know? Because as much as you might hate CVs, it's not a disease that actually kills you. So, you know, it's that sort of thing. That's something I'd like to get rid of. And I know I'm never going to get rid of it, but I'm going to try to be my best, at least, to show that behavior to others. How about you?
I mean, I echo your sentiments on that for sure. And I think that, so I suppose there's an element, I suppose you have to go with what the majority of people would see as sort of antisocial or unacceptable behavior. I would like to see, I'm trying to think what's the right way to phrase it, because I don't want to be too broad, but like in the category of like cheating, and griefing, so that combination of cheating and griefing, so greeting, no, that doesn't work. The ability to do things like spawn, you know, put pillars somewhere to block land, or go through terrain because there's a bug, or, you know, whatever. So anything that you know, and duplicating items. stuff like that. So I haven't seen, thankfully, a lot of that, but because I don't play too many sort of PvP or competitive games in that sense. But I guess in a rose tinted world, what aspect of game would you like to remove? I guess, I don't know if it's cheating, but talking about this, but I would almost flip it around on its head and say what I'd like to see instead is I'd like to see something that could, in all games somehow, reward compassion or, you know, sort of considerate gameplay or whatnot.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see that rather than trying to always strip things away, because there's always going to be a percentage of people that will have the mentality of like, oh, I'm not allowed to do this. Great, let's see how we can do it.
Yeah.
So I think, imagine if you could like grief somebody by building pillars around their starter hut so they can't build their house, right? But imagine then that someone else could come along and remove them or whatever from that clan or whatever, and they got rewarded somehow. You know, it gave their character an XP boost. They got 100 in-game coins, or, you know, insert reward here, or, but just like a good, if people, and I know there's going to be an argument of like, well, then you're just paying people to behave well, but it sets the principle and it encourages more positive behavior. If people are doing it for the right motives or not, who can tell? But I'd like to see more, you know, we talked about this as a karma system in WoWs as an example, giving out compliments to people. And again, I'm not going to go into the nuance of all the, well, you compliment your clanmate. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying just genuinely saying, somebody the other day put down, was in a low health Preußen, and a Napoli came in close by and put their smoke out.
Yeah.
So that I could survive, get a heal, and we could carry on fighting the game, right? I did 169k damage and we still lost anyway.
Nice.
Nice. It came down to the last ship. Anyway, the point is I gave them +1. And I think it would be great if, and then there's always the element about how do you judge this. But anyway, if you'd have to have an honor system or a trust system. If you give them that person a +1, they should get, I don't know, 5 random signals that the game randomly generates when they leave the match.
Yeah.
Or whatever, 50,000 credits or whatever, right? And you get 10 to 15 compliments a day, what, you know, depending on your karma ratings and blah blah blah. I'd rather see that than, oh, let's report this guy and get them chat banned or whatever. Like, let's stop focusing on the negative and think about how can we introduce rewards and elements that make it, because most of the rewards, in fact almost all, like there's probably some I'm not thinking of right now in the game, are for you, the individual player.
Yeah. They are for you doing something as a player.
Yeah. So, and I know like in War Thunder, there's a system where it's like you did useful actions, you helped your team, you assisted, you know, this kind of thing. And I just think that if you can't build it into the actual mechanics of how the game and the battle unfolds or whatever, then at least if you have a human element like a karma system, give people some kudos for that. Give them something like, if you've got 10 plus karma in the game, you get, you know, 10,000 credits. If you've got, you know, and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of things you could do that I don't think would be that difficult to develop technologically and implement, or at least trial. And I'd like to see that across the board. And I'm not harping on about just these games. I'm saying across the board in this quite broad rose tinted world. That's what I'd like to see. Something that implements or that encourages compassion and supportive interactions and play styles.
So Palia had this idea where you could request an item you needed, and someone would give that to you. But the reward for giving something to someone and the system of requesting something from someone was a bit too restrictive. But the idea is built around very much what you're saying there, where you can't request too much. You can't request something that you don't already have access to. But at the same time, if you're sitting there and the game is robbing you, because some of these things are completely RNG based, if you get them or not. And being just kind of, you know what, I'm not able to get hold of this. Can I please get one of these from one of you, and then give a reward to the other person depending on rarity or how much. You know, you give a stack of 20 to someone, then they're gonna get a big reward. Give them one and they're gonna get a tiny reward. But excellent opportunity of kind of giving out some of these points, these character points that they had, you know, for making sure you have more energy and whatnot. Like, that is, they're on to something there, and yeah, I like the twist you put on the question, and yeah, you know, focus on giving out something positive to someone else instead of the negative. I like that. Speaking of giving out something positive, Diurach has a question. He asks, what is your end of year / festive period like? What do you look forward to most, as in Christmas, New Year's, or maybe something else? Also, why are pig in blankets and sage and onion stuffing the best thing to happen on this planet? I'm personally looking forward to hogmanay and good food. I don't really celebrate the whole Christmas thing. Why don't you take us away on this one first?
Okay. Firstly, Diurach, bless you. Pigs in blankets, yeah. Sage and onion, no. It's got parsley. No, parsley stuffing.
No. We don't food shame people.
No, but
You've
got to draw the line here. No, it's mainly because I've got a mild onion allergy that makes me feel upset.
That's fair. That is completely fair, but don't food shame, okay?
I just remember, like, historically when I was younger, there'd be like the turkey or the chicken or something and the stuffing with the nice crust if it's been cooked properly and sticking out the back of the bird and whatnot, and then you'd go and dive in because, like, every week it's like parsley or thyme or something, and then you dive in, and that one time where whoever's cooked, the adults have just been evil and gone with sage and onion, and it's too late. It's like, oh, I'm eating this now. So yeah, particularly hit a nerve there. But my end of year festive period, I was thinking about this, you know, when I saw the questions earlier. It's so different now through the course of my life. It's gone through all, like, when I was young, it was very traditional. It was very Christmas, baby Jesus in the manger, and all this kind of, even though we weren't necessarily strong or strictly religious per se or whatnot, but it was definitely, that was the thing. And so I went through all of that, and then that morphed a little bit over time with different families that I was a part of, and things with different, coming from different cultural backgrounds and whatnot, and it became very much food centric. So it was all about the food, and there was a lot of the traditional thing, but it was always like, what else could you throw in on the side, and it was always just overeating and over drinking.
Yeah, food is culture, so that's that.
Yeah. So. And now it's like I'm kind of, I don't really celebrate it as such. In as much as I think every morning when I wake up, I'm like, oh, I'm here again. Okay, we might as well get up and do something then. And I don't mean that to sound, I just mean in a very neutral way for the most part. And so I don't really celebrate like being here for another year. But I get a little bit sentimental at the time because of the tradition and all the years of my life when it was more the done thing. So I got the whole, you know, Happy New Year and Happy Christmas, or I would say Xmas now because it's like somehow that is less offensive than if you say Christmas. But whatever. And I don't know. So now I'm just like, you know, it's New Year. My New Year's routine is, let's get, if I feel like it, let's get a stream done, have some fun, give people a nice, safe place to be, and then log off and probably have something, you know, a heavy meal, you know, pizza or something like that, or whatever. You know, whatever. It doesn't have to be a traditional thing. Just something I'll enjoy that will put me in the food coma.
Yeah, give you plenty of those good quality food comas. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the evening is it used to be like, even, I don't know, 10 years ago, or like 5 years ago, it would have been like, oh, we'll stay up and we'll send all the messages and see who remembers to SMS or whose numbers I've lost this year and all that kind of thing. And now it's like, right, we'll get ourselves tucked up in bed, 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit of telly, or a little bit, no, not telly, but like a
watch some
TV
series
show
or something,
something to distract and put you to sleep kind of thing. And mainly my thoughts are, please don't let there be fireworks. Please don't let there be fun. I don't want to be up all night listening to other people's fireworks, Or sometimes if I'm full of energy, I'll be like looking out the window saying, oh, this is great. There's free fireworks.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's pretty cool because you can see some quite fancy stuff sometimes around here with the US Air Base quite close and whatnot. So, I guess I'm a bit of an old Scrooge in the meantime, like not in a sinister negative way or whatever, but I'm just kind of like, nah, I'll just go to sleep and wake up tomorrow and we'll have another go at it, shall we, the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of me now. It's a little bit, it sounds kind of sad and whatever, but I just feel comfortable with that. I don't need all the dressing up and parties, and I've done all that, wearing the tuxedo or whatever.
This is a different chapter.
Yeah, it's like, it was fine for what it was, but usually I've just ended up hungover and overtired and doing nothing on New Year's Day because I'm just, watching the football and falling asleep mid-afternoon.
You need an hoodie. You need an hoodie that you can sit in on these days and just kind of go, this is me now. Stay warm and comfy and cozy.
Having the hoodie seemed like a good idea at the time.
My God, it's so
he
fantastic.
He was later regretting it when he found himself at the milk aisle in the supermarket.
But yeah, no, I reflect many of the things you say there. It's like Christmas over the years here have been heavily focused on must spend time with family, must do these things, must do traditions, and for many years I have slowly kind of been breaking from these traditions. One of them that has been like, it was super strict in our household, like, was on Christmas Day, because we celebrate Christmas Eve on the 24th. That's when we open packages and your presents and everything and do the whole thing there. Whereas a lot of others do it on Christmas morning, the day after. And that morning is usually you put on the same suit, the same very nice clothes you had on the day before for breakfast even. And for many years I've started just kind of, I'm gonna wear my morning lounge wear, my comfy sweatpants and my oversized t-shirt and oversized hoodie, because I want to be comfortable. I want to enjoy this morning lazily. It's one of the few times off in a year that people have, because most people are working, most people are studying. Christmas is one of those periods of time in Norway where you actually have time off. And over the years, it's kind of started to move towards no longer being about family, which I know throws some people through the loop, that it's more about creating a time of year where I can fully relax. Like, there is no focus on anything else than just enjoy festivities for what they are, but not to be forced to have to eat all the traditional foods, not to be forced to have to eat all the traditional cookies and cakes and stuff. It's nice if it happens, but it's not going to be my main focus. So I think having gone more and more towards a celebration that does that, all depending on how this Christmas goes, I might do the same thing you do, where on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I'll probably put on a stream. I'll create a place for people to kind of hang out and whatnot. And then after, I'll just enjoy some sort of food and just watch a movie, or because again, like you said, it's just another day for me. And to many it's gonna sound weird, but I I've changed my way of celebrating to be more of a, okay, what mood am I in? Like you said regarding New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is for New Year's Eve for me. Like, yeah, there might be a time where I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna drive somewhere and watch the fireworks there. Or there might be a time where I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay inside in front of the fire and enjoy it being warm, because reasons. Regarding pigs and blankets, they're not as big here as they are elsewhere, so no comment. But that
Just before we move on, though, there's something I'd like to add on is one thing, and I think this is probably just, I don't know, I can only speak from my own experience, but really part of the journey as you get older and whatnot, and you get to reflect. And one thing that has been very prevalent in my thoughts in more recent years, probably the last 10 years and more so, is some part of me feels that the whole point of the free choice and doing what you want and what you feel and what's good for you and those around you, I think is a really positive development. However, I'm worried, I personally I observe that it comes at quite a significant cost of part of this trend of being more isolationist and very like tribal, but much smaller tribes than ever before, even a tribe of one. Certainly a tribe of 1, 2, 3, whatever. Yeah. And I do feel like the world is the sort of fabric of civilized society takes huge hits on this with this march towards individualism and isolation, and I think it's more subtle and more prevalent and more insidious than we often recognize. So I do want to add that there's obviously nothing wrong with celebrating with those around you and doing the traditional things. As you know, if you're not hurting anyone else, you're fine. So and I think that one of the things that's very prevalent in my thinking is I wish for nothing more sincerely and wholly than peace. I just wish we could all experience peace. And just going on the shopping run today, it made me, you have the thoughts of like, it's so precious and so privileged and so lucky. I was thinking about people complaining like if a pizza arrives burnt or late or something. It's like, most people don't have running water or clean water. Even most people don't have sanitation, a plumbed toilet, for example. And a lot of the time you see people, having a big hissy fit about this, that, or the other, like my pizza was late or I, whatever. And so I suppose my point here, without going on too much of a rant, is just maybe I just wish everyone peace and that moment of serenity and calmness, that we can kind of have compassion and get through whatever frustrations and intolerances we're feeling or experiencing or even exhibiting without necessarily meaning to. And that's very important to me at this time of year, because it is a time when in this part of the hemisphere, this part of the world, we stop and think. And this isn't a religious statement as such, or it can be taken that way. I don't mind, but the sentiment and the meaning of it underneath is so much more important to me. And I think these times are good because you have these moments to reflect, because it's bloody dark, it's bloody cold, everything shuts down. So you have and I hope that people can spare a minute here and there to think about those kinds of things in a positive way, not in a the world's doomed kind of thing, but just in a, maybe we can lend a helping hand to one another. So I just wanted to tag that on because I didn't want to rant too long before, so I've ended up doing it later on.
And if you feel alone, reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Please. There's always going to be someone available. Speaking of someone who's always available, Bluetinum asks.
Pretty good. I threw you a real curveball there, but you handled that well.
Thank you. It's as if I've done this for a while. Bluetinum asks, speaking of RP and the upcoming eco season, what are your expectations and who are you looking forward to RPing with apart from Cringer, new game features, etc.? And I'm looking forward to seeing it because I know that eco has done a lot in the background with both the system, the playability, and everything. But there is one thing that we're going to talk about a bit later. So if you just hang on a tiny moment, Bluetinum, you will understand one of the things that I'm looking forward to. But I hope that we're going to be able to see more people put role playing or eco service up that focus on the cooperation that I know that both you and me really enjoy, as opposed to the society mimicking or simulation.
Yeah.
And knowing that some of the changes they've done in the background, this is probably going to become more and more prevalent. And I honestly think eco is one of those really good systems for that. So yeah. How about you? Is there anything you want to bring up regarding the upcoming eco stuff?
Yeah, I think that, I can't really call out a list of names or whatnot. I'm excited just to see what people come up with, what characters they'll be bringing. Definitely going to be returning as Ivan. Maybe some twists in the story, like he doesn't always do exactly the same thing. We did a lot of the road work stuff last time around. But I'm incredibly excited for all of the new eco features that I've seen. I spent time in the eco dev stream, not last Friday, the one before, and they were showcasing the new art supplies and art easel, which is incredible. It takes real-time snapshot of what you're looking at in the screenshot that you capture in the game, and you get, I think there's 4 different filters, different artistic filters, and it makes a real-time render on the easel of exactly that screenshot you just took in a different art style.
Oh wow.
And you get to watch it being drawn up by the game. It just takes like a couple of minutes or whatever, and it's all locally processing on your client, saves it as a file, and then it saves the artwork as an item in your inventory, and you can then drag that and drop that into like art frames or picture boards and all kinds of things like that.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. You got to see it in action. It just, if that works the way they demonstrated it when it releases, oh my goodness. I did say to them, please make that accessible early game so that people can have some fun with that straight away, rather than it being like so often those things are like mid to late tier.
The custodian of the great library might have to return.
Yeah, there you go. So definitely excited for what might happen. Obviously expecting that we'll team up with our buddy again in some form or other. I'm hoping that Damien is in a good place and able to come along and roleplay his character Johnson, because I thought there's a lot of legs in that character. Could be a good laugh.
Business mogul.
Yeah,
no, he's good.
Just because he needs a break, he needs a good RP opportunity, and where health wise and everything just lines up for him. So I'm really hoping for that for him. And yeah, everything else, the new boats There's a fishing boat that'll be late game, like a big trawler, but there's also a ferry boat with ramps either end that you'll be able to get some of the smaller earlier game vehicles and the people on carts and things. So the thing that Cringer and I wanted to do last time out with the canals might actually be viable this time to have river crossings rather than, and then you can see all sorts of things. Imagine like you've had the toll booths with over roads, or someone builds like a garage door. Imagine that with like canals. It's like you can't go across the canal, and then some role playing. If you've got a good strong relationship, good trust with somebody's building a bridge, and then you role play that you're like dismantling the bridge every night, and which you can't like. Well, you probably could do it if it's not locked down, but you could do things like the canal team versus the bridge team or the road team, and why would you travel by road? That's so yesterday and all that, when it which would be a nice flip around on real life where it's like roads have ended up dominating rather than canals. But yeah, so there's that, and there's like new building mechanics. There's the ability, you don't have to build a big scaffolding, although it's quite fun for RP, but you don't have to hover up on the roof and trying to find exactly the angle to put the next piece of roofing down and all that. You can actually build like 3 or 4 tiles above you now. That seemed like a nice new feature to make building smoother. And there are some new early game pieces like dockyard pieces and ropes and things, and if you're creative you can use those in like your wooden hut and give it a nicer feel, or a nice garden area, or yada yada yada, without again having to go to the late game stuff. As a role player, I'm always looking for things that you can get access to right from the beginning, so that you're not spending the first week and a half grinding materials. Looking at you, Conan. So you can build a nice building. There's probably a whole bunch of things. Even the stone roads, they reworked the stone road look, so it looks so much better. And they reworked the windmills. So the wooden windmills have like cloth sails on them and some better movements and things to them. So nice. And then there's the other thing that we haven't even touched on yet because it will come up later. So I'm just off the charts excited. As soon as the eco stuff came out, I was like, I pinged Cletus and Gassin. I was like, let's go. Let's go. Let's get in this. And then it was DM with Cringer saying, he's like, send me a link to some videos so I can look at it on the stream. It's like, well, they haven't really done like a big, this is the release video, which is a bit unusual for a year's worth of work. But anyway, they're doing YouTube shorts every few days or whatever in the dev streams. But so there isn't yet a concise, but it's releasing on December 12th. So we're so close.
Looking forward to that. Yeah. But speaking of eco, and I think this is the perfect segue here, really. What is your something to smile about?
Yeah, my something to smile about, although I've kind of cheated and doubled down again this time, but is Stats blog actually, firstly, again, starting to feel a lot better. So good vibe stats, scary stuff when he was feeling unwell. Stats blog sent me a video of him messing around in version 10 Eco with the facial recognition and character creation stuff. Not so much the character creation stuff, but the facial recognition. And 2 things. One, you're going to be able to create characters that look a lot more individual than previously, which is going to be great for roleplay because that visual recognition of like, oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, no, wait, so-and-so also wears a red jumper kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that'll be a little bit in the past. And but the facial recognition, and actually I think it does some body like arms and stuff like that as well. It's really solid. Like the only thing I've seen of this built into the game was Star Citizens, and it's so bad.
Like the stuff you see from Eco, the little bit that Stats did for us in that tiny little video.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
How have they just absolutely nailed it?
No idea. They must have someone that just knows what they're doing with that stuff. If I was Star Citizen, I'd be like, we need to hire that person. But from an eco point of view, leave them alone. They're perfectly fine with it. They
can stay in eco, honestly. Yeah. But like just the immersion and the fun and the ability to do that, it's going to add so many levels.
Yeah.
Because
Imagine the characters like. So here's sorry to jump in, but you know the Atlas thing where we go audible gasp when somebody gasps.
yeah,
Because your characters have little to no way of emoting, right?
yeah.
Imagine in Eco where there's an audible gasp and people like maybe put their hands naturally to their face while they're playing their character, like because normally you have your cameras off and that because you're playing the character, right?
Mm.
So people will be able to see that and they'll know that I'm doing that in for real in the background. Without even having the camera on, just be able to, or I don't know, wave at somebody.
Yeah, or confused faces, or
raise your eyebrow kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
oh, that's what she said.
Or
Imagine that's what she said, and the smirk and the eyebrow raise,
the eyebrow wiggles,
with 3 or 4 people looking at each other, and you're like turning the camera, looking at the other characters, like. This could take role playing in that environment to the next level, like several levels beyond.
Yeah.
And the whole circle talk thing, trademarked by StatsBloke, how people role play in Atlas, where everyone stands around in circles, you can all hear each other and see each other's avatars. It just takes a completely different dimension.
It does.
You've got this whole way of interacting and expressing your character. So this is. Honestly, if it's as good as it looked in Stats' testing, and it's consistent and it works like on a server full of like 100 people or whatever like that, imagine being in a tavern and you're not having. So what we've done as role players is we've gotten used to expressing the visual emotions and behaviors of the character with our voices.
Yeah.
So you do like a cheer emote, yay, but then you're explaining what exactly you're doing and how you're using your hands and you're using your voice to do your physical expression. And you go from that to suddenly being able to physically. That's why I was so excited for the FOIP thing in Star Citizen, because I was like, imagine being able to drop a cup of coffee and then just make some sort of gesture like you clean that up yourself, or unfortunately. It doesn't work very well, and this eco thing is that was my thing to smile about. Yeah. The only thing I want to tag onto that is I also it's called Stats Face Ache. So to clear up any anxiety Stats might have, the face ache is because this past weekend I was in War Thunder Sim event with Wingling Dragon for the first time since like April or something, if not earlier, and I had face ache because I was smiling for like 5 hours or something solid just through that part of the segment. It was so good to be back. It was so good to be immersed in that. It's so good to have Wings guidance and all the things going off and be with all the sim players in the sim community. And then I just knew in advance, like I published the video today on YouTube, all edited up with music and that, but I just knew while I was filming it, not only was I having fun at the time in the event doing the things, but I knew, okay, this is going to look epic afterwards. So yeah. Stats face ache. There you go. Patent pending. How about you, Tiger? What you
well, I had a face ache too yesterday actually. Because me and Mari were sitting down eating. We'd made some pizza because both of us like we don't know what to make. We don't know what to do. Let's just make a pizza. And as we sat there and we'd eaten our dinner and everything, she grabbed the pizza cutter and was gonna lick the cheese, the sauce, and then the ham off the pizza cutter. But as she did that, she closed her lips around the pizza blade there and pulled slightly. The whole thing just dismantled rapidly. So she's left with a wooden handle in her hand, a pizza blade cutter blade in her mouth, and the crossguard just kind of tumbles down and falls on the floor, and I just start laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing, and she's just kind of holding on to these parts of this pizza cutter while giggling, mouth closed, and it was just, yep, this happened. This is where we're at now. Why did the pizza cutter rapidly dismantle? We don't know. We don't care. Let's giggle.
Yeah.
It was just a glorious moment. And yeah, just one of those nice little moments that I will encourage everyone to almost write down, if only for yourself. Because there are moments all across around us that we might take for granted or might not notice, but it's gonna be important to take these moments in, and that's where we're gonna leave you for today. Thank you so much to everyone who's been listening in, and on whatever platform you listen on, be that YouTube, Spotify, and other places where we have it. Grumbles, any last words?
No, just good vibes.
Good vibes. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Grumbles. Goodbye.